Hello everyone, Ford Massey here. Welcome to another episode of the What If Every Nation Went to War series. This is 90 years later, and yeah, without further ado, let's get into the video. So, firstly, as you can see, North America has remained roughly the same. No real surprise here, as the US is obviously dominant on this continent. Now, we have seen America begin to really focus on Asia, Europe, and Oceania. So there is some resources being taken away from defending this continent, but that's only really because there is no power on the planet who can really challenge America on their home continent, since even China is too focused on defense right now to make any progress even close to North America. Right now, China's focused on kicking America out of Asia and pushing back in Europe, and it's going to be a long time before they even have a chance of attacking the American homeland. So, yeah. Moving over to South America, again, not much has changed. America has solidified control, or I guess the United States has solidified control over South America, and has taken more of their occupied territory into legitimate territory. Again, not much here because this has by now been in control of the US for several decades, and by this point, most revolts have been put down. And again, in this series, we're mostly ignoring revolts anyways, since otherwise this would never end, because we just keep seeing revolts. So, yeah, moving over to Europe, as you can see, we have another situation of mostly the US dominating. Now, this time, it's not complete, as both China and Turkey are on this continent, but from Spain to Moscow, we see that the US is in total control of pretty much the entirety of Europe's actual resources, with most of the remaining resources already being used up by Turkey and, to a lesser extent, China. Now, we're actually seeing the US get a bit overstretched since they have so many fronts. The US is going to have problems pushing forward due to the fact that their population, comparatively to China and India, at least their core population, is not that large, and non-core population is going to be much harder to convince to fight, especially if we're going from someone from, say, Mexico or Brazil. It's going to be really hard for an American who's still probably seen as an invader to get them to go fight in the cold Russian tundra against China. So America is having manpower and logistic issues, but overall, that is not going to really affect them in Europe, since Europe is close enough that the logistics aren't too big of a problem, but it may start to be a problem when they push into places such as Turkey, Iran, and Central Asia, and especially as they get further into the Russian Arctic to try to finish China off, which is probably why they're attacking in the east as well as the west, since they don't want to overstretch their European front too much, or else they risk China potentially even making breakthroughs due to a lack of manpower. But yeah, and as you can see, the only real stronghold in Europe proper left is a small Turkic force defending Greece. Moving over to Turkey, as you can see, they have significantly shrunk in all places but Africa, where they have expanded. They have taken pretty much all of Egypt's heartland, but are beginning to lose ground against India, China, and, most importantly, the US. Turkey, despite formerly owning nearly the entire Balkans, has now been pushed back to just Greece, Albania, and a bit of Bulgaria, and now is facing the real threat of their homeland being attacked by America. Currently, Turkey is making defenses around Istanbul and is preparing for a potential siege, but only time will tell how that goes for the US. Moving over to South Asia, as we can see, India is still going strong. Although they have lost a bit of land in Indonesia, they have mostly stabilized the front with China and are overall just kind of doing fine. Not too much to say here. They're probably the one whose situation has changed the least since the last couple scenarios, because they're kind of just walled off by jungle and mountain, and they're kind of just, solidifying and making sure that America doesn't steamroll through their mainland. But overall, India is pretty much just chilling. Moving over to China, as you can see, they are really the only power that has a chance of at least offensively beating America. India might be able to stalemate them and win defensively, but really looking at their location, you can see that India has a very low chance in even really the long term, as in several hundred years, to really push America back past really Java, or even New Guinea if they're lucky. But China has control of some of the biggest world economies and has a good amount of stuff under their arsenal. With most of Russia's resources also under their wing, they are the only power here who has even a small chance of beating America, which is probably why America is focusing on them so much, because every other power isn't really a threat. India is certainly a problem, and Turkey and Egypt are nuisances, but China is the only real threat, as in with the naval, land, and air power to somewhat challenge America's hold, especially in the Pacific, which could potentially even lead to China invading America. Theoretically, obviously. Now, China, granted, is in no position to threaten America anywhere but the very western Pacific. And even then, really, China is currently focused on stopping America from invading Taiwan, Japan, Korea, or the Chinese mainland. Currently, China has sort of fought America to a stalemate, as America is kind of stuck because both their Siberian and their European fronts have kind of drawn to a logistic standstill. So right now, China's biggest threat is not from the land, but instead from the ocean. As we can see, American forces have advanced all the way up to the northern Philippines, even capturing Manila. And now the United States is potentially planning to attack Vietnam, Thailand, maybe Hong Kong, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, or potentially even a very risky invasion of China's heartland to take Shanghai or Beijing. And if that happens, China could be in big trouble, assuming the invasion force actually lands. But overall, only time will tell if China is able to hold out or even push America back due to their population and home field advantage, or if America is eventually able to use their larger military industry and larger global reach at the moment to defeat China. But yeah, now moving on to Oceania, we can see literally nothing has changed here except for the fact that America has taken a little bit more control over the outback. Overall, this has really just become a little base of operations for invasions against China and India. And not too much to say here, as really not much has happened here since America took Australia. And now the main fight in the Oceanic Islands has shifted over to Borneo and eventually maybe even Sumatra. But yeah, moving on to the final continent, we have the mess that is Africa. As you can see, the front between Egypt and South Africa has kind of stabilized, as even though Egypt is theoretically stronger, they are having a major issue that South Africa has so far been lucky enough to avoid, and that is foreign powers. As you can see, there is an American invasion of Morocco that is devastating a lot of Egyptian infrastructure, but the big death blow that has now come to Egypt that has pretty much prevented any chance of them winning is Turkey taking the Egyptian heartland. With this, Egypt has lost its capital, lost control over the Mediterranean bank of the Nile, and actually have had to move their government over to Lagos, which is a bit of an embarrassment. Overall, Egypt is pretty much in its own coffin and is being forced to watch as its empire slowly collapses to its northern neighbors. South Africa is in a slightly better position as Egypt's military crumbles by the week. We see that South Africa is beginning to stabilize, but the South African government knows that they need to prepare for a time when the Turkic and, well, potentially the Turkic and definitely the Americans eventually land on their shores. And South Africa is trying to prepare, but only time will tell if that preparation will actually help at all, or if America is simply going to steam run them. Is that the word, steam run? I'm not sure. It's going to run over them and just kind of take all their land. I don't know. But yeah. Anyways, without further ado, thank you all for watching this video. I hope you have a good day and a great year. And that's Voidmaster signing out. See ya!